Hi, it's Roz from Scully Dangling About the Books, and it's Tuesday, so it must be time for a tag. And I was tagged by Sina of Beating Around the Books in the Bar and the Bookcase Tag, and the original of that is by Jalen of the Bar and the Bookcase. So it's his signature tag, I think. And I'm going to start by tagging people because, yeah, Nell of Gunfowder Fiction and Plot said that was a good thing to do, and I can really see her logic, so I'm trying to remember to do it, but I keep failing. Now, the person that I'm going to tag first is Pei, of his channel's called Attention. And I'm tagging him not because, well, he's welcome to do this tag, but I'm tagging him because actually what I want to say is if you're only going to watch one tag today, this Tuesday, don't watch this one. Go to the link that I'm going to put in the show notes to Pei's version of my tag about tags tag and watch that one instead because it's he's such a clever filmmaker and it's really funny and yeah, just do it. Okay, so off you go. Okay, so you're back. Great. Okay, right. Let's carry on. Who else am I tagging? Quickly. Katrina at Katrina Reads, Christina of Knitting Books, etc. Two kind of like newish, smallish booktubers with good things to say. Steve Donahue. There's not doing many tags at the moment. I hope that's not because he's not feeling so good. So but he likes to be tagged, so I'll tag him in case he fancies it. And Alan of Big Hard Books and Classics, because this is one of those tags where you have to pick lots of books, like pull them out of your memory. And I know Alan does nice ones for that. So all the prompts are based on cocktails. And the way you're meant to do this, I'm sure, is with a cocktail or mocktail in your hand. But because I'm doing this quickly in a little break in my working day, you've just got to imagine me tippling away happily. So, prompt number 1, old-fashioned. Historical fiction recommendation. Okay, I'm going to recommend an author rather than one book. And the author I'm going to recommend is Helen Dunmore. And she died a few years ago. And she was a poet and a novelist. She wrote all sorts of different novels, but amongst them, she wrote some really good historical fiction. I particularly like two set in Soviet Russia, The Siege, set in the Siege of Leningrad, and Betrayal, which is set in the 1950s. Exposure is one of hers that's set in the 1960s, so it just fits in the historical fiction, 50 years ago thing. And it's a bit like a John le Carré novel, but written from the perspective of the women, not the men. The wife. Yeah. Yeah, read Helen Dunmore. Number 2, Sidecar, a book with a strong supporting character. Lots of books have strong supporting characters, but I'm going to pick one I read just very recently for the BookTube Prize, and that was Djinn Patrol on the Purple Line. And that has a 9-year-old boy as its protagonist, Jay. And he's trying to look into the disappearance of children live in the slum where he's growing up. And he knows that all good detectives have a sidekick or two, and he picks two of his school friends to be his sidekicks, as it were, except that the girl of the two, Parry, is just such a good character, really brilliant, and really Jay is her sidekick, not the other way around. Number 3, Manhattan, a book set in New York. So many books are set in New York. What is the thing about setting books in New York? Sometimes it feels like every other book is set in New York. Many good ones, though. And the one I'm picking is Behold the Dreamers by Imbolo Mbue. And that came out in 2016. And I picked it because it really gives you kind of deliberately the two extremes, perhaps, of New York life. So it's about two couples, and one couple, the Jongas, are from the Cameroon. They're recent immigrants. I think they're on a student visa at the moment. They're trying to claim asylum. And the other couple are the Edwards, and Mrs. Edwards is like old money, and Mr. Edwards is a banker. He works for Lehman Brothers. And these two couples their lives intersect. Yeah. It's a goodie. I like that one. Number 4, Bloody Mary, a book that scared you or messed you up. The book I've chosen is by a Slovak author, Daniela Kapitinova, and translated by Julia Sherwood in what I think is a really good translation. It was a tricky book to translate, as will become, to get the tone right, as will become clear when I explain. And the book is Samko Tale's Cemetery book. And why did I pick this? It's a book that starts out seeming to be full of funny little anecdotes told by this slightly odd narrator who's writing his cemetery book. And as you read it, it just gets darker and darker and darker. And that's because it's set in a small Slovak town after it became independent. And it looks back to when this town was part of communist Czechoslovakia. And it's kind of, I suppose, revealing some of what it was like to live in communist Czechoslovakia and the sort of atmosphere of, like most people are just getting on with their lives, but the potential for sort of fear and betrayal if you stepped out of line. Why did this book mess me up in particular, though? Because the main character is someone he's disabled. He has both sort of intellectual and social and physical impairments. I said both, that's 3 things, isn't it? And I've said, haven't I, that one of my bête noire, I suppose, is when disabled characters used in books as like either sort of that sort of, either they're an angel or a sort of a villain, or I don't know, or a plot device, not just as a character. Now, Kapitinova chooses this disabled character because she wants to show how he's kind of almost inadvertently used as an informer against other people in his community, because people don't sort of pay attention to him, I suppose, because he's disabled, but also he's easily persuaded that he's doing the right thing when he tells tales, I suppose, about his other people in his community. And he's kind of exploited by the sort of the people that want him to be an informer. Yeah, they exploit his innocence, or yes, he's sort of not seeing through this, or not thinking through the consequences, or yeah. But the author is also like using him as a plot device, using his disability in that way. So yeah, it left me with it's a good book, I thought, but it left me with an odd feeling. Yeah, not quite sure. 5, Espresso Martini, a book that kept you reading into the night. I'm not going to pick a book, I'm going to pick an author, Charles Dickens, because Charles Dickens, well, when I pick up a Dickens, I always think, oh no, this is going to be fat and slow and it'll take me out. And then I get into it and I just have to keep reading it, and I'll, fall asleep reading it late at night, because I think I'll read to the end of that chapter and I get to the end of that chapter and I have to go on to the next chapter. And that is because Dickens' books were written originally by him to be published in a serialized form in magazines before they were kind of gathered together in a book, and he wanted people to always want to buy the next edition and read the next bit of the story, so he does that so well. Number 6 is a cocktail called Sazerac. I've never had one of those. If anyone knows what it is, let me know. Is it nice? It sounds odd because the prompt is book that left you disorientated. So, what kind of cocktail leaves you disorientated? The book I've chosen is The Man Who Saw Everything by Deborah Levy, which came out in 2019. I'm not going to say a lot about it because I don't want to do any spoilers for a book that leaves you disorientated. But it's one of those books where about halfway through you have to rethink everything you read in the first half. Long Island Iced Tea, a book that is doing too much. Bonus points if it works anyway. Well, I've got one that is doing too much, but I think works anyway, and that's what She Would Be King by Wayetu Moore, and it's quite a recent book. Yeah, I can't remember which year it was, 2019 maybe, 2018, and it's one of those books when people describe it, they talk about vast canvas or extraordinary imagination or rich creative storytelling. She does pack too much in it, but and it goes backwards and forwards in time and place, and there's a bit of magical realism, and there's some real historical detail, and she's writing like a kind of a foundation myth for the country of Liberia. I thought it was tremendous, but a bit of a roller coaster. And she sort of probably does pack too much in, but she pulls it off. Number 8 is a Negroni. Now that is a serious favourite cocktail of mine, and the prompt is for a book with a love triangle because 3 ingredients in that, I think so. Yeah, and I've picked My Sister the Serial Killer, which is not your conventional love triangle, and that's by Oyinkan Braithwaite, and it's so the 2 sisters that are the sort of main characters in this book, they end up kind of both interested in the same man. So it is a love triangle, but it's not your standard romance. If you haven't read it, I thought it was a lot of fun, as well as being enjoyably dark, and it kind of introduces you to, if you're not from Nigeria, to a sort of strata of Lagos society that is quite immersive and interesting too. Number 9 is something called a Bay Breeze. Now, I don't know what that is, but I have a feeling that I wouldn't like it because the prompt is a book with light, chill, or heartwarming vibes. Now, a cocktail with kind of light, chill, or heartwarming vibes sounds like it would be sweet and sickly to me, and that would not appeal. And nor do most heartwarming books, if I'm honest. I'm not a reader of heartwarming, really. Yeah. But, or certainly not when an author sets out to be heartwarming, if that makes sense. But I did just read a book that I did find heartwarming, and that was Big Girl Small Town by Michelle Gallen. Came out in 2020, so she's a Northern Irish writer, and the setting and some of the story is troubled. Yeah, it's not all kind of like jolly, but the main character, Magella, absolutely was a heartwarming character to me because she has this awful, I don't know, sort of tough things are happening in her life, and have happened in her family's history, but she has this sturdy kind of optimism that she just keeps getting on with it. In fact, stoicism is the word we should use for her rather than optimism, and that I really liked. And the other thing that is heartwarming about this book for me is, I talked about how like my reservations about the character Samko Tale. Well, Magella is again a non-neurotypical character, autistic, I guess, but it's not said. And it's central to the book, I guess, her way of interacting with the world. But it's not a plot device. It's just who she is, and it's part of how she, deals with her life in her own particular way. Is the heart of the story, and I really liked it. Number 10, Dark and Stormy, a book that's dark, thrilling, and menacing. Bonus if the setting matches. Now, the book that popped into my head when I saw this prompt was Universal Harvester by John Darnielle. It came out in 2017. It's an American book. It's set in Iowa, in a sort of small town Iowa. So I suppose I don't think the setting will get me the bonus point, but the book is definitely described as dark and menacing. And I went to check it out on Goodreads to check if I was remembering it right, if that was the book that I thought it was, because, I read it when it was newish, so, some 3 or 4 years ago. And I was right. But what I found when I looked on Goodreads is, those things where people go on Goodreads and they read 1-star reviews of books that they like. Well, I found that was what I was doing. Okay. So the thing to know about this book is the premise is that there's someone who's working at a video rental store, Video Hut, back in, like, I suppose it was the 1980s, when that was still a thing. And people start complaining when they bring the videos back that there were little bits of video over-recorded the proper films, and he watches those and they're a bit weird, and he sort of starts to delve into that, and it all goes from there. Okay, Here's some of the 1-star reviews for this book. Okay, Edward Lawn said, I want you to read the description of this book. I want you to focus in on the words disturbing, haunting, and threatening. Those 3 words, plus the premise, made me buy this book in hardcover at full price. Legit, went down to my local BAM and paid $25 for this. I'm mad. I've been lied to. Great, isn't it? Let me find another. Okay. There is a version of this story where it actually gets told, but this isn't that version. And someone else says, thank God I got this from the library. I love it. I thought it was a really good book. And if you like dark, but you don't want the sort of standard dark menacing thriller, this could be one for you. Tell me if you read it and what you thought. And our final prompt, Martini, a classic cocktail, and the prompt is to recommend a classic. Well, there's so many I could pick, aren't there? So I'm going to pick the one that I'm reading currently, which is Adam Bede by George Eliot. And one of the things that I love about George Eliot is the way she writes about people, and that they're always rounded, and her good guys, bad guys, they've always got either flaws or good qualities as well. That they're always rich, her characters. And some of her descriptions, her words she uses are such, words. Don't we love words in a good classic? There's a middle-aged woman in this book that she describes, and the phrase she uses for her is clean as a snowdrop. Magic. And on that happy thought, farewell.